Hey friends, welcome to another one of our daily Devos. My name is Tim, and I'm glad to be bringing another devotion to you this morning. Happy Tuesday to you. We're so glad that you guys have been enjoying these, that we have been experiencing kind of this life together in this digital church realm. We love that you guys are sharing these and commenting and liking. In fact, you can take a second right now. You can do that again. You can share that. Why don't you give us an emoji today? Let us know what you're feeling today, how you're feeling in the form of an emoji. I also want to remind you to send us your pictures of how you are worshiping together with your family during this time. You can email those to us. You can tag us on social media. You can text them to us as well. As we are looking at a devotional today, I wanted to encourage us from Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians is one of my favorite books of the Bible. Very small epistle written by the Apostle Paul. And in chapter 5, verse 15, he says this. He says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." Friends, I simply just want to encourage us this morning to be purposeful with our time. You know, this is kind of the new normal that we are living in. We don't know how much longer we're going to be kind of in this world, but it's going to be for a while, it seems like. And I want to encourage you that not to look at this negatively, but to look at this positively. And one of the great positives that has come out of this situation is we have all been given the gift of time. We have a lot of extra time on our hands. Some of us do. Some of us are working our tails off, and we are appreciative of those who are doing that, and we're praying for you, those especially who are on the front lines. Thank you so much for what you're doing. But others of us have been given the gift of time. And I want to encourage those of us who've been given that gift to make the most of every opportunity, to hand that time over to the Lord. Because just as the Apostle Paul says, we're reminded that these days are evil, that left alone, this time that we have been given, it could turn into bad things if we're not purposeful with it. So I want to encourage you with 3 things that you can do to make the most of your time. The first thing that you can do is you can work on a spiritual discipline. We are in the midst of a study on spiritual disciplines on Sunday morning, where we have been hammering home prayer and fasting and all these things that we've been talking about working on. You can go back and listen to those, but now is the time, friends, to try one of these out, to really dive in spiritually, to figure out how to work out these spiritual disciplines in our lives. And I would encourage you to do that, to make a plan, to commit to it, and to ask someone to hold you accountable to doing it. Now, when you're doing this, if you are, for instance, if you're trying to add more prayer into your life, I want to encourage you with all these spiritual disciplines to start where you're at, not where you think you should be. If you're trying to add prayer to your life, don't start out saying, "Oh, I'm going to wake up every day and pray for an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes. Start where you're at. Think, I'm going to add 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, or I'm going to add 5 minutes total, or I'm going to start a prayer journal. Be realistic with yourself and start where you're at, not where you think you should be. The second thing that I would encourage you to do to make the most of your time is to connect with others. Especially right now, friends, there are so many people who are feeling completely isolated and alone. And we as the church need to rise up and remind them that we are part of God's kingdom, that we are loved by Him, that we are chosen by Him, and that we are one body. And so I would encourage you to reach out to people, to daily text people, to call them, to Zoom with them, to connect with them on Facebook, whatever ways that you feel comfortable, connect with people. You know, some of my friends from college, they hosted a guys' night the other night over Zoom, and I got to video chat with some of my old friends, and catch up with people that I hadn't talked to in years. And it was really good medicine. We laughed a lot, like really laughed, like belly laughed, a few stories that some of us were sharing. And it was just so good. And I've been connecting with my grow group that way. And I would encourage you to do the same. Zoom is a wonderful tool that we can all really use right now. And the third thing that I would encourage you to do, friends, is to not engage in escapist behaviors. In this passage, Paul says, don't be filled with wine, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. Friends, we are people of desire. That's how God made us, but God made us to desire Him. Ultimately, all these other things, these escapist behaviors, they leave us feeling empty, whether it be wine or whether it be binging on Netflix or overeating or sleeping in late or whatever it might be. It leaves us feeling empty. And there's a lot of negative consequences that come with that. And so I would encourage you during this time to set limits on those things. Some of these things can be very good if they are done within limits. Remember, the Apostle Paul also tells us that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And so whatever it looks like for you in your context to set limits and rules on those things, you need to do those things. You need to have a schedule that you're sticking to. You need to have rules in place so that you don't overstep those boundaries into an unhealthy way. When we're thinking of these three things, we're talking about adding a spiritual discipline to our lives, connecting with people digitally, and not engaging in escapist behaviors. There's one really question that I would encourage you to ask yourself to redeem the time, to make the most out of every opportunity, and that's this. If Jesus were living in your context, if Jesus were in your shoes, what would he be doing right now? What would your life look like? If Jesus lived in your household, if Jesus lived in your home, what are some of the behaviors that he would be engaging in or not engaging in right now? And I think that's really a great question for us to ponder, to think about, of how we can make the most of every opportunity, to look at it through that lens. Well, friends, I hope that this devotional is encouraging to you. I hope some things kind of jogged your memory, and I hope the Spirit was speaking to you and brought some things to mind. If that happened during this devotional, I would encourage you to comment right now and tell us some things that you are planning on putting into place and making changes in. And we would love to hear that. We're glad that these continue to be an encouragement to you. And we miss you guys, and we will see you soon. Thanks.